It was only a few short years ago that Roots opened their new factory on the outskirts of Glasgow. A new factory for an exciting new car, the Imp. A factory which not only provided a new livelihood for Scotsmen and Scotswomen in the area, but which also embodied all the most modern automated equipment. Precision engineering for a precision-built motor car. Few of those who saw the first Imps roll off the end of the assembly line realized then that within no time at all, these cars would be breaking records in nearly every corner of the world. At Silverstone in 1965, the Imp was honored for its outstanding success in the Tulip Rally. In this grueling 1,900-mile international event, Tiny Lewis finished second to the outright winner, Rosemary Smith. The Imps beat the cream of the world's cars, but their lap of honor at Silverstone was only the beginning of what turned out to be a stupendous year of achievement. In the Alpine Rally, only a few weeks later, Rosemary Smith won yet another Coupe des Dames. Nearly 2,300 miles long, the Alpine has a reputation for being a car wrecker, but it didn't wreck the Imps, which also chalked up first place in the up to 1 litre class in the Grand Touring category. Traversing the roughest Alpine passes at average speeds of over 60 kilometers an hour demands a robust car and a skillful driver. The Alpine was but one of 12 events that year in which the Imps covered themselves with glory. Britain's RAC Rally in the autumn was another of these successes. Only 2 of the 9 factory teams which entered survived the cruel buffeting over the Forestry Commission tracks of England, Scotland and Wales. For Tiny Lewis, number 48, followed here by David Pollard, the RAC Rally clinched the 1965 International Rally Club Championship. At the prize giving near London Airport, the Imps of Tiny Lewis, Rosemary Smith and Andrew Cowan line up for the coveted Manufacturers' Team Prize. The 3 of them richly deserved the award and what went into it, or out of it. Rosemary, dress designer from Dublin, and Tiny, a Bristolian, have been the spearhead of Imp successes in international rallying, and this time they were ably supported by Andrew Cowan. Only 62 of the 162 cars which started managed to complete the 2,350-mile route. From an autumnal Britain to sun-blessed Florida, because it was from Miami that a lone Imp, crewed by 2 Americans, set out on an outstanding demonstration of endurance and reliability. The target, to get to Fairbanks in Alaska within 1 week. The distance, 6,162 miles, nearly the equivalent of a direct air flight from London to Singapore. On the outskirts of Miami, the outriders left the Imp to its own navigation. In Texas, a local resident, the proud owner of an Imp, shows a natural interest in a fellow car. Texas is a state of contrasts, from oil to grain elevators, cowboys and steers. After a night crossing Colorado, the Imp drives through Utah, where a temperature of 90 degrees, combined with an almost complete lack of humidity, makes driving really scorching. It's on, living in an Imp, eating in an Imp, a journey which calls for every comfort. Canada now, and it's raining as they pass the stadium famed for the Calgary Rodeo and blaze the trail northwards across Alberta towards the top of the world. The final leg is the 1,500-mile-long Alaska Highway, once called the Alcan Highway, running from Dawson Creek through Yukon to Alaska, a road surface mainly of gravel and dust at altitudes of 4,000 feet and more. Indeed, at times, the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit is almost superfluous. And yet, the 875cc Imp keeps a schedule. Throughout the whole trip of more than 6,000 miles, the only replacements the Imp needed were 1 set of sparking plugs, 2 oil filters, 2 air cleaners, 1 set of tires, and a radiator damaged by flying rocks. And so they reached their goal, Fairbanks, the heart of Alaska's gold mining industry. The Imp has averaged 50.1 miles an hour and 37.6 miles per gallon. Back to Europe and the 1966 Monte Carlo Rally. in which these Polish-entered Renault and Rover found that neither 1 nor 2 litres provided the answer. And how many litres is that? The perennial battle with the elements which form such an inseparable part of the Monte was only a forerunner to the battle with the organisers, who saw fit to eliminate 10 British cars on a technical point concerning the lighting regulations. But at this stage of the rally, it was a question of getting going somehow with the exotic principality a long way away, and many of them had their lot. No, that's somebody else's lot. And another person burning it up. Rosemary Smith, seemingly all set for the ladies' prize, made it look like a piece of cake. While Rosemary Smith and Valerie Morley were churning their Imp unaided through the ice and snow of the Alpes Maritimes towards what looked like a certain coup des dames, others sought helping hands for their churning. But the girls were to be robbed of their award because of the somewhat controversial lighting regulations. Meanwhile, the Swede, Ove Andersson, had the navigator of his Lancia in the hot seat. Apart from the factory-entered Imps, others were in the hands of private owners, such as the Swiss Ziegler. The Imp's rear engine layout pays dividends in such conditions. Tiny Lewis went on to win the up to 1 litre class for modified production cars, with another Imp privately entered second. Although Rosemary's efforts in her standard production Imp proved in vain, another Swiss driver brought his Imp through to win that class. And if Rosemary Smith can make her Imp fly over ice and snow, the Royal Air Force ought to be able to do the same. 4 RAF officers set out to drive an Imp on a record-breaking run across Europe and back, a run through 29 countries. From a bomber airfield in Norfolk, the Imp set off for the sea crossing to Norway and the Oslo start. The RAF Motorsport Association weren't making things easy for themselves when they chose the first fortnight of January in which to make their bid. Weather could hardly have been worse. The snow and ice in Norway and the outward trip was indeed a foretaste of a hard journey ahead. The wintry weather continued unforgivingly throughout Sweden. Indeed, they hardly saw the sun until they got to southern France. The car was a standard production Imp Deluxe Saloon Mark II. 875cc to power them for 4,280 non-stop miles. From drive on the left in Sweden to drive on the right in Denmark. Ahead of them were Germany, Holland, Belgium, Luxembourg and France. Two of the officers drove the Imp to Milan, where the other 2 took over to continue on to Andorra and then back to Milan again, so that the first 2 could complete the return journey to Oslo. The ferry between Denmark and Germany had provided the last hot meal they were to get for nearly 30 hours. More snow as they entered Switzerland. The only work needed on the car during the entire record-breaking run was to tighten the front wheel bearings once and adjust the brakes twice, and they drove the Imp virtually flat out day and night. On through Switzerland, Liechtenstein and Austria for a change of crew near Milan. Then over the mountain passes with their familiar tunnels hewn out of the rock, across into France again on their way towards Monte Carlo. The outward journey from Oslo to Andorra in the Pyrenees took them 53.5 hours, 90 minutes within the target they had set themselves. But this was only the halfway mark. A quick inspection of the Imp revealed merely a gouged windscreen caused by flying stones. and so they motored out through Spain on their return journey. Milan again, and time for the final change of crew. 2 tired drivers handed the Imp over to the original 2, who'd rested in readiness for the run north back to Oslo again. 29 countries non-stop with no special concessions at any of the frontier posts. The weather was slightly kinder on the return journey, but there was no time to enjoy the nightlife of Milan. On the contrary, heavy traffic coming through the south of France had delayed them, and at this point they were 2 hours behind schedule. By the time they'd reached Luxembourg, they'd just about made up this deficit, but there was still plenty of hard winter motoring ahead of them. They had no outriders to guide them through towns and cities, so they had to take pot luck with traffic conditions. Once on the open roads and clear of speed limit restrictions, the RAF officers pressed on, holding 80 miles an hour for long periods at a time. On one part of the run north, they covered 65 miles in 58 minutes. And so back into Scandinavia again, back to the ice and snow, where if a car is to be driven at record-breaking speeds, as this Imp was, it must have superb road holding. But the Imp had proved itself in other ways. It had, above all, proved its reliability, its dependability in spite of being thrashed mercilessly. For this return journey from Andorra to Oslo took a mere 51 hours. The Norwegian flag flew triumphantly. Our 4 flyers were equally triumphant, as one of them clutched the route card which bore the stamp of every frontier crossed. 4,280 miles through 29 countries in just 104.5 hours, a new record at an average speed of 41.15 miles an hour, and with petrol consumption working out at 38.5 miles per gallon. The Acropolis Rally belongs to Greece, one of the few countries that our RAF record breakers didn't visit. Rosemary Smith, with once again Valerie Morley as co-driver, set out in their Imp, aiming to win the ladies' prize. And it's an Imp also for Andrew Cowan in this 2,000-mile international rally, a rally which only 37 cars finished out of 105 starters. Apart from an exacting time schedule and notoriously bad road surfaces, competitors had the additional hazard of other road traffic. Did I say traffic? Mary had a little lamb, and it nearly left its tail behind it. Although the Acropolis Rally doesn't enjoy the same publicity as the Monte, it's held in high esteem by rally competitors, and certainly it ranks amongst the hardest European events. Rosemary Smith attained her goal, the ladies' prize, the 4th such award in a span of only 5 months, and an Imp was her car every time. Rosemary and Valerie also finished 3rd overall, irrespective of engine size, in the Grand Touring category. From dust to dust, the dust of the Sahara Desert, where 2 factory engineers set out on a test run from north to south, with an extra 36-gallon petrol tank behind the front seats, a 15-gallon water tank, and 4 spare tires. Quite a load. Even the maidens are laden. The surface was largely kart track with undulations of varying pitch and frequency, enough to break even a camel's back. The Tademate Plateau, 2,600 feet above sea level, is some 111 miles across, and that's only a small part of the journey. The descent from the Tademate Plateau was, like virtually the whole journey, a real punisher of the suspension system. At times, the wind was of 60-mile-an-hour force, and the temperature inside the car rose to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. You can't motor across the Sahara without a lot of equipment, sand mats, shovels, and so on, besides ample fuel, oil, and water. For a relatively small car, such a load is a very severe test indeed. An endurance test of a very different nature was held on the banked track of Montlhéry, just south of Paris. This was a question of flat-out motoring, day after day, night after night. The engine in particular was given a tremendous hammering as it crammed into 3 days and nights more than a lifetime of weekend motoring. The saucer, or piste de vitesse as the French call it, as far from a billiard table surface. A special instrument panel was fitted so that the test drivers could study all relevant details, engine oil temperature and so on. The test went on in fair weather and foul. Headlamps on as dusk fell, and still the Imp thundered round the Montlhéry track in a carefully controlled and observed endurance run. With oil lamps to mark the otherwise ill-defined edges of the concrete track, this was yet another step to prove the Imp's ruggedness. Test runs such as these receive little publicity, but they form a part of Route's policy, a policy aimed at the continual improvement of their products. Very few private owners of Imps can know quite how much goes on behind the scenes. But there's no getting away from the spotlight of publicity which the press, radio and television focus upon events such as the Scottish International Rally. Rosemary Smith and Valerie Morley in Imp number 5 were pitting their skill against tracks in the Scottish Highlands. Tiny Lewis, Imp number 8, was there too with Robin Turvey as co-driver. In all, there were 99 cars taking part in this 5-day rally, and of these, 46 failed to cover the full 1,800 miles. Another Imp exponent, Andrew Cowan. And yet another, David Pollard. But many private owners of Imps were also competing over the dusty forest tracks. For instance, Malkin in number 28. And the singer chamois of Graham and Jerry Birrell. Mr. and Mrs. Rogers were there too in yet another Imp. Greenwood wasn't slow either in his Imp. In the final reckoning, Imps were placed first, second, third and fourth in their class, convincing enough evidence of their prowess in international rallying. But once again, the ladies' prize almost inevitably went to Rosemary Smith in her Imp. Yes, Rosemary and Valerie were not only the best ladies, they were third overall, irrespective of engine size. As if such victories in rallies were not enough, Imps have conquered the race circuits also. Their superb road holding helped them to fight off the opposition through such treacherous bends as Paddock at Brands Hatch. And the power of the Imps entered by the Alan Fraser racing team kept them ahead on the pit straight. Lap records in the various saloon car categories and classes went for a Burton, both at Brands Hatch and on other circuits. Indeed, Bernard Unit's Imp was the first ever small saloon to lap the Brands Club circuit under the minute, a second off the lap record for special saloons of up to 1 litre. An average speed of 74.6 miles an hour, with 40,000 spectators on Easter Monday to see it happen. Unit 1 only seconds ahead of Roger Nathan in another Imp. Roger Nathan meant business at Mallory Park, and as so often has been the case, his closest rival was Bill McGovern in the Imp entered by Paul Emery cars. The twists and turns of this 1.35-mile Leicestershire circuit put a premium on road holding and on acceleration. To Nathan's credit was already a class lap record of 85.71 miles an hour at Goodwood. Although McGovern was leading up to lap 8 of the 10 laps, victory went to Nathan, together with a new lap record of 59 seconds, 82.37 miles an hour. Oulton Park in Cheshire, 2.76 miles to the lap, is probably the most picturesque circuit in Britain. It's also been a happy hunting ground for the record-breaking Imps, whose habit of setting up lap records has become quite a feature of saloon car racing. At this meeting, it was the turn of Nick Britton in one of the Alan Fraser Imps to break records, although once again it only came about after a race-long battle in which the main opposition in its engine size class was once more provided by Bill McGovern's Imp, a formidable combination which had already broken the class record on the equally tricky Lyddon circuit. Nick Britton shattered the Oulton lap record no less than 8 times, eventually leaving it at 2 minutes 1.2 seconds, 82.01 miles an hour, fully 2 seconds faster than what it had been. This was the 3rd consecutive victory in the Spring Grove Saloon Car Championship for Nick Britton and his Imp. Back to Brands Hatch again in time to see the Imps of Bernard Unit and Ray Calcutt capture new class records in the full Grand Prix circuit. As in rallying, so also in racing, the Imp has proved itself and continues to prove itself far more than just a family car. Whether it be storming alpine passes, raising the dust of Greece, scurrying through the forests of the Scottish Highlands, churning through the snow on the way to Monte Carlo, blazing the trail to Alaska, bumping across the Sahara, tearing round Montlhéry, crossing Europe and back, or as we see them now, emerging on top of the race circuits, one thing is certain. It's a car which deserves the title, Record-Breaking Imp.